The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. I have a lot of respect for Vans and their vision of supporting individual creativity. Thank you, Vans. Season 6 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Crow's Nest Barbershops, and Ocean Rose Organic Microdoses, Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC, and Stance Socks. All the sponsors of Season 6 are awesome. I love the yellow cedar board that Wired made me this year with wood from Mount Seymour. And now with Devin Walsh on the team, Wired is going to create a world-class snowboard brand. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop is my original home in the snowboard community, and now my son works there. I'm always stoked to visit the shops on West 4th Avenue in Vancouver or up on Lonsdale in North Van. Anon Optics work incredibly well. This year, with the mandatory face mask stuff going on at the local mountains, having an integrated magnetic face mask was rad. Crow's Nest Barbershops cut my hair and my son Bowen's hair too. Thanks to John and all the Crow's Nest staff. Ocean Rose Organics are microdoses available to FNRad listeners at a 20% discount thanks to John. Use code FNRAD20 at checkout and start microdosing with carefully measured, top-quality organic mushrooms today. Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC is the one place you want to go when you're in the Kootenays. Shane and Mark and Buff and the entire staff that run that place are amazing. They run a great operation, and they're the real deal in snowboarding. And this year, Garrett Louie hooked us up with Stance Socks. Thank you, Garrett. Check them out, and you're going to find amazing high-performance socks with graphics that represent who you are as an individual on them, thanks to their unbelievable amount of rad collabs, from Wu-Tang to Willie Nelson, from Star Wars to Mickey Mouse. Stance Socks look great and work great. I want to thank Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, and Tomahawk Cannabis Extracts for their support this season. All right, now on with the show. I chose Marie-France Roy for the final episode of Season 7 because she's an awesome example of a pro snowboarder. Marie grew up snowboarding just outside of Quebec City and made the jump to Whistler after college, where she quickly became one of the best snowboarders in the world. She cares about the planet and inspires other people to care too. And when you see her on the snow, her enthusiasm is infectious. It always seems like she's smiling. I'm really proud to bring you this conversation with professional snowboarder legend, Marie-France Roy.
I just moved back yesterday, so that's why I just got to my place last night, and our stuff's everywhere, and back to the island, and it feels a bit early, like we could have stayed a bit longer. There's probably going to be one more reset, but we had some things to do here, and my boyfriend's going back to the States soon, and we just didn't want to be rushed before he leaves and to move our stuff. And it's been an amazing season.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah, and right up till the end too. Like you said, there's probably one more reset for the Whistler backcountry, but the last one was just so good. Did you get out for get out last weekend for a couple of days?
Yeah, I got out. So what happened is I went on this big traverse. I wasn't here for the last big push that people were getting after it.
Yep.
Like I missed that, and then I just went out a couple of days since I've been back. But I was destroyed from that trip. It took me I'm still recovering, I think.
Oh wow! What was the trip?
We traversed from the Bugaboos to Rogers Pass.
Oh wow!
And so that's about 115 kilometers, and you start closer to Golden, and you're in the mountains all the way to Rogers Pass, which is closer to Revelstoke, for those who don't know really what this means. But it is a lot of glacier travel. It's winter camping. You're carrying really heavy packs with all your stuff, and you're exposed to the weather and the elements, and it's very big days. It's huge days, and it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. I've never pushed myself physically this much. It's crazy.
How do you get into a trip like that? Is that something that's been planned for a few years? Or is there somebody that, they do it all the time and they're like, oh, you should come this year. It's so much fun.
So this was planned. So my really great friend, Leah Evans, she's a skier, fellow Patagonia ambassador, and she came up with this idea to do this traverse. This is like the most famous traverse in Canada. So one of the most famous in North America, maybe. Right. And it's definitely like it's kind of one of the greatest adventures. Like, if you want to go out there, and especially for guides, people who are trying to be guides, this seems like it's something that, like, where they can practice all their skills, and it's good to have on your resume because, like, you're really out in the elements and you need to know how to navigate in the mountains, like, really well. And we had a couple guides with us, and it's full on, like, it's really full on. And so she had this idea, and we tried to do it 2 years ago, and a bunch of events had us cancel last minute. And this year we got to try it again, and it all worked out.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. There's a real blending of backcountry enthusiasts and snowboarding going on as snowboarding moves further and further out into the backcountry, right? Like, I just watched, I guess it's a 2-year-old film with Brian, or 3 now, with Brian Iguchi, Travis, and Jeremy Jones, backcountry Jeremy Jones, and they do a long traverse out in, where the heck are they? Probably in, like, Wyoming, right?
Yes, I've seen this film. It's so good. They have such great conversations in there.
Yeah, they make it look like it's fun. I mean, I've been winter camping a couple of times, and there is nothing fun about trying to sleep in the freezing cold. Every time I come back, I say, I will never do that again. Winter and camping is not, they don't go together.
Really? I quite enjoy it. There's ways to do it that are really good if you have the right gear, and obviously if you're lucky with weather, it can be amazing. Yes. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But like for example, on our traverse, like this couple nights were like howling wind. Like, it's like, the Rutherford Glacier. It's like, imagine camping there on howling wind, cold night. You have to dig yourself out of the kitchen, and your tent doesn't even have a floor. It's just like a tarp.
Oh, wow.
And I was freezing, but our friend, one of the film crew guys, had like the worst sleeping bag I've ever seen. Oh, no. And it looked so wet and cold, and I'm like, oh my God, you must be dying in there.
Yeah, we the 2 times I've winter camped, one was at the Brandywine cabin before it burned down, and one was at Hot Springs, actually. And yeah, Hot Springs sounded like a great idea, but you get stuck in the hot springs, and then you're just icy cold getting back into that tent. Yeah, I didn't have the right gear. I think, but at the same time, also, I even think with the right gear, I would have been frustrated with trying to sleep in the freezing cold. I think I would have been.
Yeah, it's a different type of fun, for sure. You don't go out there expecting a good night of sleep. No.
Amazing. Well, you've had an incredible year, and you've had an absolutely amazing career. Where did it start?
I started in Le Massif.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's further east. It's one of the highest mountain in Quebec, I believe.
Yeah.
For a resort. And it's more free ride. Like, we never really had a park or anything, but I remember like being in high school, like doing petitions, like trying to have a park, and they just like, no, it's not what we do.
Rad.
And but it was rad to have like a resort, like, which like was half an hour from home.
Yep.
And when I was about 9 or 10 years old, my parents separated and we ended up staying, all three kids, with my dad. And when my dad then decided he wanted to get back into skiing because we had never been.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, if you guys help me around the house and you help me with the chores and cook and clean and start working in the summer and pay for your gear, I'll buy you a season pass every winter for Christmas.
Rad.
And we were in. We were like, that sounds good. And so I started pretty much at 11 years old. And the first winter, I followed my dad around in the moguls all year round. It was so funny. And good skills development. And the second year, my dad kind of forced my brothers to take me on, which they were not super hyped about because they just wanted to shred with their friends, and they had the dopest crew.
Right.
I mean, the dopest, the only guys who would snowboard. But they were dope, and I just wanted to fit in so bad, and I was just so shy and intimidated, and I would just say nothing all day, just follow. And I'm really grateful that my dad did that, and he stood up for me, like, to make sure that they took me under their wings, and they were really nice. I learned so much, and these are still some of the most like developing years of my life, for sure.
Yeah. What kind of board do you start out on?
Okay, so my first board, we went to La Vie Sportive in Quebec, and everything looked so expensive, and like my dad's like, oh, I see the defect pile over there. He's like, pick something in the defect pile, and it was like $100, and it was a solid board.
Nice.
And it had all these bumps on it, and it's sweet. It was like totally awesome, and that's what I started on. And then years later, I got like a Atlantis Daniel Frank, and I was so hyped on that one. That was
nice.
the first real board. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a stiffer board actually too, wasn't it?
At the time, I don't know. I just think it was like a 56. I don't know. I was riding whatever was there, like, you just ride it, you get used to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we didn't know any better, and we just wanted to shred. So I was never someone that was so technical about gear either. It was just more about, I think you adapt, right? And
yes.
Of course, there's gear that's better for you than other. But I don't know. I just didn't have maybe the time or luxury to look into all of that. And the information at the time is hard to get. Like, there was no internet where you can research every board model. Like, it's, but I had seen that board in magazines and videos. Totally. Yeah. Those Atlantis boards were, with Kevin Young and Daniel Frank, like they were in the MacDog movies, Ingmar, like those were sick looking boards for sure. I just remember them being relatively stiff. Like for me, I prefer like a softer board. And I remember thinking like, I'd love to have one of these, but there's none that like flex enough for me to push it around, So imagine like a young girl on a stiff board, but it probably actually helps you, because it's pretty solid ice out there sometimes, so you can, go fast on this and keep up with the brothers. It's fascinating that you've got the brothers, because that's a formula for a professional snowboarder, guys like Terrier, and so many people have older brothers that they were chasing around. I know, right? It seems like you just need that. Well, I mean, it's so great to have people that can push yourself, and like every day you're just like pushing your limits and just trying to like keep up and going outside of your comfort zone. And it was pretty like I was like quite a bit younger, like 2 and 3 years apart, and so in high school that's a big difference, and they don't want the little sister tagging along. So they were nice, my brothers, but their friends sometimes were so harsh with me. Like I would try to hit a jump and I did suck, but they're like, you suck. And I always tell the story that they would have spitting contests on my board on the chair to see who could have the gnarliest one. But I would have I wouldn't have changed it in any way. Like, this is exactly where I wanted to be. It was like on that chairlift with them, you know?
Yeah. 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 You want to fit in. Did they push you to compete, or do you just kind of compete on your own?
The competing, like, it's funny because there was not much happening, and we didn't really have that on our radar. But like, after a few years, there was this one little event we heard of at the other resort, the Mont Grand Fond, and we all went. And it's funny because we all entered, and the judges for that contest were this crew from Montreal. Like, and this guy, Olivier Charbonneau, he had a magazine at the time, Objectif X, and it's so funny because him and his girlfriend and all his friends were the judges, and they were like, you need to come to Montreal and do bigger contests. Like, you would kill it over there. And
Rat.
I was like, really? Like, I don't think so. I just had no idea what the level was. And we did go to Stoneham and did a couple events, but my oldest brother was never really into it, although he was so good. Mm-hmm. And the middle brother, like, he was, I mean, he's older than me still, but
yeah,
he was, he came to a couple more contests, like at Val Saint-Côme and Stoneham as well. And also so talented. And I don't know why they never pursued it. And it's not even that I like contests. I just like going out there, meeting all these rad people that love snowboarding too. But like, I think life just happened so quickly for them, and they definitely could have been pro snowboarders if they wanted it. Like, right. There's no doubt about it. But like, you know, my dad had a construction company, and they like my middle brother, like the middle one, is like right out of high school, took that over, and my oldest brother went to college for architecture and also took over the company. So it's like they were just focused and maybe not as, I don't know, disconnected. It's not that I wanted to become a pro snowboarder. I mean, I went to school too right out of high school, in ecology in college, but I just always kept snowboarding as this source of like fun, and I like the weekend contests. Like, eventually I went to like more because I just like meeting these people that just loved it, and I like the parties, and I like the culture, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think it's a classic older brother, younger sibling dynamic, right? Like, you're not as hungry when you're the older because you're not being pushed the same. You don't get that early taste of what it means to like kind of impress somebody. You know what I mean? And have that kind of drive and success. It's like, yeah, I can take it or leave it. And then
I guess so.
It's kind of fascinating too, because this is one of those, you know, this season I'm trying to have more women on the show, and mostly from my conversations with Jess Camira. She's really been so patient with me because I have some of those classic kind of manly views and she's changed my mind on them, which is really, really nice. But here's an example of where, you know, that actually works in your favor, right? Like, your dad's not pressuring you to take over the construction company, and you're having fun snowboarding, and it's like, yeah, like keep doing that, right? Like, I'm guessing, right?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know. My dad was never pushy for any of us.
Right.
He was, if anything, I don't even know if he ever showed up to a snowboard contest or event. Like, he was like, so chill and so not like limiting. Mm-hmm. But he was, and I don't think he was pushy towards my brothers to do that too. I think that's more societal, kind of assumption that, like, you know, and also as maybe the oldest one, like, you always have that sense of responsibility, right? Like,
totally.
Like, I think Alex was always the one like taking care, making sure the house is locked. I was like, whatever, like, it's all good, it's party. But I don't know if. I think also I've always had a sense I always wanted to get out. I always wanted to travel. I remember like the first day that my brother went to college, he was pretty much crying and devastated, didn't want to go. And for me, I was like, I got a speed ticket because I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Like, I just always wanted to see the world, meet new people, like see new places. And I think that's the main thing that pushed me to go to these events and get out. I wanted to go to Whistler. I think it came from actually my dad's pictures of his travels, like seeing that at a young age and hearing his stories and of like doing mushrooms in Mexico with his friends.
Wow.
And like, I could just see, like, when he was telling these stories, I'm like, wow, these sound like the best time of your life, because I can see how stoked he was. I was like, I want to see all these places too.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, like my son is 17, and I've definitely been very like open with my acceptance of like drug use. You know what I mean? Especially psychedelics. Like, I just don't think that I don't think they're dangerous. I'm like hesitating to say that on the show because I'm like, wait, am I going to get in trouble here? I think it's a fascinating way to travel inward. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an adventurer. I like that stuff. So it's incredible to hear you talk about your dad saying like going to like a mushroom ceremony in Mexico would just be incredible, like a mind changer.
I don't think it was a ceremony. I think he just found a couple in a pile of cow shit and just put in their omelet. But and it's not like, to be fair here, it's not like my dad ever pushed drugs, and he always was really clear with us about that. He was like, you know what? You do what you want, but until you're 18, if you fuck up and if you're not responsible, I'm not coming for you. So just like do your own choices, but know that, like, you know, you need to be responsible. So, and that always like worked for us. Like, I never did drugs. I never like, when I was younger, like, and even now, it's not like I'm like deep into psychedelics or weed or anything.
Yeah.
But it's just like, he had an open mind, but also a sense of balance and responsibility that, he put like into us, like from a really young age. So it was clear. It's like, I work too hard, so don't piss me off. Like, just play responsibly.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, but it's cool. I'm really excited. It's cool to hear you say that you're open-minded with your kids about this too.
I think it's so much more important to be honest with your kids than it is to try and, you know, scare them into not doing things that they're going to get peer pressured to try or to think about at least, right? Like, more information helps you make a better decision. That's always been my goal with my kids, is to give them as much information as they want. And my youngest is a little more adventurous on that front than his sister was. Like, I think, or is, like, she's 21. I don't think she's ever tried anything other than alcohol. I don't think, but she's pretty private too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know.
You just don't know. But my son, you know, when he was 14, he found my weed and he stole some and smoked some with his friends. And I was like, well, that's a little young for weed, but I wasn't mad when I found out. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I totally get it. This is age appropriate. You guys are experimenting. You want to see what this is. And, you know, to be completely honest, marijuana, there are studies that show that it's not great for kids. So maybe you want to wait a couple of years, but, just to know it's not, you know, a crazy damaging one, which damaging meaning hard to have a relationship with, right? Maybe too much information saying, like, you know, you don't want to get sucked into like powders or pills or things like that. Those are really, really difficult to have a good relationship with. And it's really a fast path from, you know, being able to do your schoolwork and get your stuff done, to like, you know, being outside of that mainstream stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden you're dropping out of high school. Come on, stick with it.
Oh yeah. It can happen quickly for a lot of people. And it's just
totally.
a lot of young people, and it's really sad, especially in small towns. And that's why in cities too, that's why I'm so grateful for snowboarding, because I honestly think that if it wasn't for that, if my dad didn't try to get something to get us stoked and occupied in the best possible way outside with other people, it could have gone differently.
Totally. Where's the first contest where somebody comes up to you and says, you know, hey, we want to set you up. Like, you should ride for La Vie Sportive or En Equilibre or something. Or is it like a rep who comes up and is like, will you ride this board? And you're like, whoa, okay.
Well, there was a lot of promises in the first few contests. There was a lot of talks, and I mean, at the time it's really exciting, but then nothing comes out of it. And then the first real board I got for free, I think, was from Nick Rochon. He was the Rome rep. Yeah. And he, at the time, Rome was just starting. Like, he gave me a board, 56 Anthem. I think this one was even stiffer. There wasn't even really a graphic on it. It was just a brown top sheet. And he's like, here you go. Like, you can ride this. And I was just so stoked. And it was like the beginning of Rome. I had never heard of them. And all of a sudden we started seeing Rome boards everywhere. But yeah, Nick was the first one who actually made a move. And at the beginning it was like, okay, I can get you all this gear, this outerwear, because you need new outerwear. But and it was just like at discount, right? Oh, and you're like, oh, it's better than nothing, I guess. But you still have to pay for it.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if I want to pay for new gear. My ripped jacket's totally fine. Right. Yeah, Nick was the first to actually give me something, and he then connected me with the US guys later on, or it just all happened naturally at the US Open, I think. And it's and then Oakley was, once I moved to Whistler, Oakley was the first. Derek Height, who was the team manager at the time, was the first to come with me with an actual contract. I was working at the keg, and we still the story. He came to me. I was like, I don't know, like just a busser there, and he came to me one day. He's like, I've been looking for you everywhere for a year. He's like, I have this contract for you for $500 a year for 3 years, and I was so stoked.
Not $500 a month, $500 a year.
A year for 3 years, and I thought that was so sick. I was like, no way, like, you're actually gonna pay me money? Like, you I don't think that's a good investment. But it all happened so quickly. I just didn't know that you could make money snowboarding. Like, right. Still, like, I remember at my first super park at Lake Louise, and I found out like what some of the bigger riders were making. I was like, no freaking way. This is insane. But it's cool. I'm just glad I've never driven by the money aspect. I just thought pro snowboarders were just getting to travel for free and getting free gear, which is sweet. Yeah. But yeah,
yeah, I remember that too, on a lesser level, like starting at a snowboard shop where the first year my mind is just blown, right? Like the owner took us to Vegas to do the orders, which is like work, right? But you don't think it's work. When you get there, you're like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to go to Vegas. And by the last year I went to Vegas, we were kind of nitpicking, fighting over, like, I'm like, this isn't fun for me. You need to pay me like 24 hours a day when I'm away from my family. Like, the whole time I'm here is like, and I don't want to sleep in a hotel room, you know, sharing a bed with another person. Like, that's insane. But at the beginning, you're like, yeah, man, I'll sleep on the floor. This is amazing. Someone's paying for my trip. This is the best life I could imagine.
Yes, you quickly get spoiled with things. Yeah, totally. But I mean, we grow up and life changes, and all of a sudden, like 10 guys in one room is not as attractive anymore.
No, not at all. Like, you're like, I'm not doing a trip like that again. It's all about the good sleeps. It's like winter camping. I'm not doing that. I need a bed. I need to be able to close the blinds. I don't want to be kept up all night with gambling and drinking and craziness.
But back then, that's all you wanted.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah, that is super, super true. So when you're a contest rider, I mean, you still are a contest rider, but when you starting contests, are you mostly half pipe, or does slopestyle kind of evolve while your riding's evolving?
I've never been in a half pipe contest in my life, I don't think.
Oh, wow.
Never been a half pipe rider.
Amazing.
Unfortunately, I think it's so cool and you have to be such a good rider to do it. I just never experienced or learn how to ride a pipe, really.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess the first contest was whatever was there, right? It was like, I remember like hitting a rail in my first contest. I was like, I've never hit a rail before.
Awesome.
And then I think when I started competing like at bigger events like the US Open and stuff like that, that's when slopestyle was really coming on and rail jams.
Yep.
And yeah, I think I would have done better in the big air era. Like I didn't have enough tricks, and I just wanted, like, when I was younger, I just really wanted to go big and spin as much as possible. And I didn't get the notion of landing or spinning all four ways. Like, I don't know. I just came from a really, like, we didn't know the grab names. We were just riding and hucking ourselves. This was my background. And
yeah, I
remember my first US Opens, like, being called out for just being a hucker and like, oh, she can only spin one way. And I was like, what? People are mean. Who cares? And I was like, well, I guess I should just try different things. But like, by doing that, it's just like, it changes your riding style altogether. And I just never been a consistent slope style rider. I've done so many contests, like so many Dew Tours, US Open, X Games, never podiumed at any of them.
Oh, wow. Really?
I've always done good. Like I'm almost always like top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, the odd last place because you really fuck up, but never podium, like, ever. And so, and I like them. I like doing them, but at the same time, contests are harsh. Like, if you do good and you win, you feel really good about yourself. But if you don't end up podiuming, even if you rode really well, you feel shitty about yourself.
Yeah, I can see that.
For me, it's like, I knew that I didn't want to take the safe runs. I didn't want to do like straight air, back 3, front 3. So I was always trying to push myself to go bigger, and then I wouldn't land a full run, or like do really good but fall on one thing, or a one hand down on one thing. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, your score sucks. And so it was frustrating, but at the same time, I just had to learn the game. I should have just worked on being more consistent, and I
like the way that you went. Being more authentic I think that's the better move, and I think that is what has led to such a, long and healthy career, right? Like, because I don't know, I don't watch contests, so like you could have told me, oh yeah, I've got like 20 X Games medals, and I would have been like, yeah, of course you do. I won the Olympics. You have to be like, yeah, that's awesome. Good for you. Amazing. But like the riding of you that I see is like, people respect your riding because you learned how to ride big mountain proper. And I guess that's going to happen when you move to Whistler, right? Like, at what point do you move to Whistler? Pretty early on in your career?
Well, thank you for that. I don't know. I think I'm still learning how to ride big mountain. I think I went to Whistler while I was in college for a summer. Like, we drove across for this in my car with this psycho boyfriend I had, and he made me cry every day in the summer.
Oh, that's awful.
And then we slept in my car, and I at the boot pub by the river there. It was so awesome. And
wow.
And I worked. I mean, it was hard to find a job, but I had no address, no phone number. I couldn't speak English. But when I finally did, it was housekeeping, and I worked every day of the summer to pay for my school. But then I took one day to go on the glacier, and it was the sickest day ever. And I was like, I'm moving back here once I'm done school.
Right.
And so then when I was 18 for that summer, and then when I was 20, I was done school, and I'm 2021, and I moved back for good. Yeah.
Yeah. Not with that boyfriend, probably.
Oh no. I felt bad to ditch him because like my car was our home, and I'm like, I'm gonna make him homeless if I ditch him, but he's such an asshole. So then when I was 21, I mean, I moved back thinking it would just be 1 year though, because
Gotcha.
I was doing my internship at the Vancouver Aquarium for my ecology, like a college 3-year degree. And then I was like, okay, after that, I'll go to Whistler for 1 season, and then I'll get a real job in my field because I loved what I studied.
Yeah.
And then it's just that during that 1 year, that's when I entered like a couple local events, like the showcase thing, and
Showcase Showdown.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And then within that 1 year, that's when Derek came with the contract.
And you're like, okay, so a paying job at an aquarium in my field, or $500 a year to ride a snowboard. This is an easy choice.
Well, there was no job at the aquarium. It's so funny because it was a free internship, and I had to give tours to people, and I couldn't speak English.
Oh, wow.
So fun.
Yeah, I've done those tours with the kids. Those are fun.
Oh, yeah. It's sweet. Just, there's Nemo. Boom.
Yeah. Here, you can touch these sea anemones. And, and over here is the dolphins. I'm glad that they've finally taken all the like big animals out of captivity in Canada and the US. I think that was an important move.
Yeah, that's a heartbreaking story for sure.
Totally.
I think we're growing. We're slowly learning and trying to get it together.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's kind of a lot of people have done a lot of hard work to open our eyes to the fact that, hey, you know what? It's not that cool to have a whale in a swimming pool. That's a bad idea, actually.
Yeah.
Like a really bad idea.
Okay. Yeah, it's really bad. And it's like, it's hard because these establishments do so much good, but there's just a few, like, as far as research and everything and protection, conservation, but there's a few things that it's the money, right? It's the money that gets in the way. But it's nice to see some awareness and awakening there, because that's definitely not right.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you torn at the time, or were you pretty oblivious to it? Because I remember the Vancouver Aquarium being a really happy place. You go, you watch the beluga show, everything was cool.
Yeah.
Kids loved it.
I know. I remember like at the time they had the belugas, and I was like, oh, cool. And, I was pretty oblivious to it. Like where I come from, there was beluga whales like everywhere on the St. Lawrence, even up to where I grew up. Like in the spring, you would see them on the ferry to Little Could, the little island across.
Are you serious?
Yes, and they were like sea lions over here. They were so common. Like if you went whale watching and saw belugas, it was like, boring. I want to see blue whale, and and now going back there, I'm learning that nobody sees belugas anymore. It's like, it's so sad. And like, so back then, from a place growing up whale watching all the time with my parents, and just, I was like, oh, belugas are abundant. And you see them at the Vancouver Aquarium, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think it was that sad, because you're like, I was oblivious. And even I was studying in that field, and it's like, oh, I mean, yeah, these are saved specimens probably. You just assume that these people are doing the best thing for these animals.
Yeah.
And then later on, and maybe they were, I for some of those specimens, I don't know. But there's definitely abuse where it's not the case for.
Yeah, like the Marineland model was
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, the world is changing and right before your eyes. And if you don't pay attention, you don't notice. But like for me, I grew up really close to nature, like country, and like I've noticed a lot of things as a child, even that I was like, wow, this is really not right. And that's what pushed me to study in that field because it was really important and traumatizing to me. And like, I was like, we're killing our natural world really fast.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
And no one cares.
Yeah. My daughter's in environmental sciences right now. And watching the
nice.
projects that she's working on, I'm like, oh, that is so dope. Like, what a great way to make a meaningful life.
Absolutely. That's what it was to me. And people told me like back then, like applied ecology program, people were like, what are you do? Why are you doing that? Like, there's no money in that. There's no jobs. I was like, I bet you there will be jobs in that. And it's not about the money. It's something I care about. And I want to work in something meaningful.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is a very big issue. Like
huge.
Yeah.
Well, you've been very vocal through your snowboarding career, too, for organizations like Protect Our Winters. And tell me about after Derek Hike gets you on Oakley. Now you know it's going to be 3 years. So do you think, okay, I'll try Whistler for 3 years and see how this goes? Or was it, you know what, I'm just going to keep snowboarding. It's working out.
Well, it all happened naturally and so quickly at that point. But like, I think that next season, so Derek may have not had a big contract, but he was really committed to send me to all these events.
Cool.
So like he's the one who got me into Super Park at Lake Louise.
Rad.
And it was with, I think, it was Dustin Craven and all these guys. I just started meeting everybody and then like going like to all the events and just paying for my travels and like giving me all this gear. And then I got to meet the Oakley team manager in the States, Liesel Holtz, and she did so much for us and for me.
Rad.
And yeah, so there's so many people to be thankful for. It's crazy. But yeah, it just within that 1 year, like so much happened that then Rome started paying me too. And,
oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I just didn't even think about it. I was just like, well, I'll see how this goes. And it was just so much fun. And all of a sudden, you know, I always wanted to travel and I was traveling everywhere. Like I won, I think that year I won the Nikita Chiquita Showdown. That was a contest in Tahoe. And the first prize was a trip to Iceland.
Whoa.
At their Icelandic Park project. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember the name.
Oh, it was the coolest thing ever. I'd never been on a plane. And I just went to Iceland and like got picked up. Like I got lost in Reykjavik for hours until because they never showed up to pick me up at the airport. So I just went to the city and somehow they found me in the city, walking in the street.
Randomly, like not with cell phones, just like, hey, there she is.
No cell phone, nothing. I just like, this guy walked up to me. It was Henry Jackson. He's like, are you Marie? He's like, can recognize the beanie style, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. And it was the coolest trip of my life. Like one of them.
Yeah.
It was, you go up, we're riding on a volcano, staying in a like really cool shack on a cliff on the ocean. It was my first time surfing ever, although I didn't catch any waves. It was just a beautiful experience. First travel overseas ever. And I was just hooked. I was like, this is the coolest.
Wow.
And yeah, met awesome people there. And yeah, and after that, like more opportunities came and yeah, it just grew from there very naturally.
You're on the Rome team during those amazing video days?
Yeah, so later, like the first couple of years, like I don't know when I was officially on the Rome team or not, but it was like at Any Means, when they decided to make Any Means, that's when it was like really cool. I like, you know, they had a meeting and they were like, we want to make sure with the riders, they were like, we want to make sure Marie has a full part. And back then, this is huge for women snowboarding. They're like, Marie's not going to have the token little shots. Like, we want her to have a full part, and she's just as important as all of you guys. And we want you to help her whenever she needs. We all going to help each other here. And that was just so cool. Like, to have that support. And that was John Cavan. John Cavan, somebody I'm really grateful for too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's the best. Did a lot for me. So yeah, that any means part was everything, because like it was just full focus. I was so driven. I was so motivated. I just had no fear at that time, and I just
rad.
And we just really sent it. We had a great crew, like with LMP and Jan and Max and Jesse Fox. And I mean, there was the crew was awesome. And like I was just getting in the backcountry a tiny bit, but it was mainly rails. And yeah, that part is really what I think helped me the most. And like, you know, starting to film, I was like, wow, I really like this. This is more my style. Like, you can show your creativity, you can push yourself more beyond just 2 runs, and you're getting judged on that. It's just like a compilation of your whole year, and so many different styles of riding within that if you want. And it's just, I was like, this is so cool and fun, and like, it's your own canvas, and I'm shaping it to what we want and what we find, not like dictated by one course and just a couple runs that we'll never put on TV because you're a girl anyway. So.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, to have a team manager say, okay, she's going to get a full part and you guys are going to help her. And he's talking to, you know, the best snowboarders in the world. That's so sick. It's really difficult to talk about women's snowboarding as a man, because I know what men say about women's snowboarding. You know what I mean? We're kind of 2 separate groups. It's like, you guys are doing women's snowboarding to lift up women's snowboarding. And so then the guys, myself included over the years, who don't get that, are judging you against the guys and saying, well, why is this in the movie? This is so dumb. She's not as good as the guys, so why is she even in there? But meanwhile, the girls who are seeing that are like, holy shit, she is the best. I've never seen anyone this good. Like, I'm going to go out, and they've got your part on repeat, and they're watching it. And, you know, so like, you've been cited as the inspiration for girls like Maria Thompson, right? Like, and Zoe. And of course, when you're going to these contests now, like the Supernatural, which I want to talk about, that must have been insanely fun. You're coming in as this kind of legend with this experience that's actually going to make you difficult to beat in this, you know, it's kind of a meeting of everything, right? It's like, okay, so now you're back at this like 1 run, 2 run contest thing, which is no fun compared to filming a part, because when you film a part, you've got a few tries at each thing. You can have hundreds of tries if you're determined, right? Yeah,
unless the landing is messed up. But...
Right. And then you reset it, or you wait for a reset or whatever. But yeah. Whereas live television in front of the most people ever watching a snowboarding event ever, you're trying to put down, you know, a video part in 1 run. That seems insane.
Yeah, it's the format is so, it's pretty full on, and it's amazing that Travis was able to be determined enough to put this together, especially on a COVID year. I was like, how are they gonna make this happen?
Yeah.
And the Jackson, I mean, I wasn't in Jackson. I was invited, but I couldn't go. And I think that show was just incredible for snowboarding. I think it was really exciting to see the backcountry meet slope style, meet like contest, but still, you know, honor the backcountry. I think in the last few years, like with contests being in the mainstream more, like I feel like brands have been like less of a priority and focus and support towards backcountry. I think that's something that's really positive that's going to come out of natural selection, is a new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And hopefully some understanding of how hard it is to ride this stuff, and especially in a contest format, like, oh my gosh, like that's for sure like really challenging, because like for me it's like, okay, this is what I love about the backcountry, is that it's not a contest, and it's like not on TV, not pressure, like
Yeah.
And but to mix the both together is definitely really exciting to watch, and it was really cool too. I mean, in Baldface, to be there all together, especially after being so cooped up for so long, like to be able to hang out and have that group of snowboarders together, that was really magical. And it was a cool experience. Definitely. I don't think Baldface was as nerve-wracking as what it would have been like to drop in Jackson.
Right.
But like talking to Robin and Rasmus, they're like, oh, this is way more mellow. Like, and I could see that. But yeah, I think, and I know that the tour is going to be probably even better as it grows and when they don't have to deal with all these restrictions. But like, yeah, what a show.
Yeah, they lucked out. They lucked out with the weather. Well, you guys didn't luck out as great at Baldface, right? Like, I think it looked like it was maybe wind affected, or there was something. It wasn't as epic of snow conditions as like Austin's first run. Oh my God. Man.
Oh, it looked so good. It looked amazing. And they definitely had like the best weather window. It was so cool that it all lined up perfectly for them. And and it takes balls to like be like, you know, not pulling the plug on this and like, no, we're going. Like, I was really, really impressed. I didn't think it was going to happen. Yeah.
So you guys were up there for a week or something? Did you have a...
Oh yeah, at Baldface we were there. I think the window was like almost, it was 7 to 8 days.
Yeah.
But so what happened is that when we showed up, there was 2 days of like pretty bad weather, like foggy. We couldn't even like really see the course.
Yeah.
And we're trying to decide which kind of bowl the venue would be on, but it was really tough to see. So we just picked this one bowl that we didn't really know had a like pretty flat section in the middle.
Right.
And then we had some sun. So for like 1.5 days, but then warming up. So we really had to run the whole thing in a day and a half.
Right.
So the first day was the lines day where everybody picked their lines, and so we did that. It took all day to do that, and then the second day, the whole time they were telling us that 70% of the line and 30% is going to be like extra footage, like more like you guys can get the whole rest of the time to do like a little video part.
Yeah, they were talking about these video edits that never, like, some materialized, like a couple of them did, but not the entire group. And
and I guess it did. I mean, they may have not shown that, but so after the first day in the morning, like there was other things they had to film or whatever, but then next thing you know, it's noon, and they were like, okay, so it's gonna warm up tomorrow. So if we want to do these video edits, we have to decide now. And we only get this afternoon to do it.
Wow.
And we're like, so what do you guys want to do? So the whole crew was undecided, and they're like, let's do a vote. So they were like, do you want to scrap the video edits and just do the lines? And of course, everybody who had a sick line or felt like good about their lines was like, no, let's call it now.
Of course.
So we had a vote, and it was 5 against 5. 5 people wanted to keep riding, and 5 people wanted to call it and just ride for fun, a few laps. And then so we had to have a Rochambeau with Rasmus, because I love Rochambeau.
Yeah, of course. So you're representing the like, let's keep going, let's do these edits, and he's representing like, look, I put that line down, man. That line's gonna win for sure. Like, I know that wins.
He was stressing.
He's like, I'm going to fucking Alaska if I win this Rocham, and it's up in the air otherwise.
Exactly. But I mean, what are you going to get in 3 hours anyways? Like,
you can't film a part in 3 hours. You just can't. That's the thing. You're blowing my mind with this because I just took for granted that it was like they told the athletes, all right, 30% is going to be your video that you put together. And you can put lifestyle in there and you can just jazz it up, And,
Yes.
and you're like, oh yeah, well, have you ever tried to make a Instagram edit in, even in 3 or 4 days of riding, you're not going to get something that you want to put out in front of the whole world. It's like, oh, the whole world is going to look at this. Everyone in the snowboard community is going to have their eyes on this edit.
Exactly. That's why we were so embarrassed.
Like, no way.
Oh my God. We have to. Anyways, I won the Rochambeau against Rasmus.
Oh, wow.
And so they're like, okay, go time. You have 3 hours because it's from noon to 3 because by 3:30 they stop everything.
Yep.
You have 3 hours and it was like mayhem, like 10 riders. People it was like people scrubbed the face and there was like people who didn't care at all. They were just kind of fun shredding. And then there was some people that were stressing. Like Rasmus was like, can I ride this? And then Leanne had to be like, well, Marie's on it. She wants to try it again. Can you wait?
Oh, wow.
It was just so funny. We had to really hustle. And Leanne and I, we are crewed up. And Robin and Spencer were crewed up for the girls. And we are just helping each other set up something. We built it a tiny jump in 10 minutes. And we're like, okay, just get upside down and do something. It was so funny. I was pulling Leanne into a feature to do hand plan with my just pulling because there was no speed. We've never ran so much. And it's at the end of the day, we're all just so embarrassed because we're like, this is not the riding we want to be showing.
Right. Right.
Oh, man. And it's there was people were hogging the drones and people there was a bit of things that were not fully fair in all of this, but
of course, that's contests. That's what contests are all about. It's always been the judging's not fair, or in a contest, half of the guys that win, the people that really care about winning are paying attention to every little aspect of the contest. Is there somebody at the start gate that's not is it a starting wand or is it a guy who's saying 3, 2, 1, go, and you can pull early? You know what I mean? That's contest winners are people that are a little bit all about winning a contest. So of course that's going to happen up there. I friggin' love it. That's so, I just imagine you guys scrambling around in this window, just being like one of those shows where they have to make food in a short amount of time. You know what I mean? And it's everything's becoming a disaster. You're like, oh my God, this is not going to be. Jeff was filming us and he was sweating so hard. Everybody in the media, the photographers and filmers were they were devastated. They were even for the lines day, they were running around, not getting the best angle. It was hard. It was hard. It was, and I think everybody in the end, even the filmers and photographers, they're oh, I wish I had more time I didn't capture the best I could. And the writers felt the same way. I didn't feel like I rode the best. And I think that's what was challenging with Baldface. It's but it was just the time and the elements, right? We were all filming in the shade. The snow was warming up. But at the end of the day, we understand that challenge for a viewer. They might be like, what is this? Kind of weak. Right. Yeah. Those moments in Travis's films where they're talking about weather up in Alaska. You're like, fuck this, more snowboarding. I don't care that you have to sit and wait. We don't need to know that stuff. Just do the tricks, man. Come on.
But we all knew that being up there, we were this is not gonna look nothing like Jackson.
You know what? It came out pretty good. I liked the format for watching because it wasn't 3.5 hours long. It was pretty digestible, and I think I watched it. I was kind of texting with Dano and a few other people, and once Rasmus went, I remember somebody saying, okay, he just won a trip to Alaska. Because it was so hands down He just filmed he filmed a video part in one line. That's insane.
Yeah, that was an insane run. Like, you could hear the people screaming on the radio because we couldn't really see his run up there, but
right.
We could like hear people like screaming, even the filmers on the lower bench, like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, all the guys rode really well. And at the end of the day, it comes down to also, I mean, there was different styles of riding in there. Like Dustin's line was insane. Bo like really sent it. I'm just so glad he's okay. And he's just like, he really went for it. And that was really admirable and cool to see. Solar's front three, that was so
badass,
mind-blowing. Like, I mean, so I think everybody like did really good, and the girls too, and like
absolutely,
Leanne's line and like Robin really killed it, and Spencer too. Like, I'm glad that everybody had like somewhat like something to show that they're stoked on.
It looked like an absolute, celebrity session at one of the raddest spots in the world. That's what it came across as. Like, as a snowboarder, I understood, like, dude, these parts that we watch that are 30 seconds long or 3 minutes long, they can sometimes take 2 years to build. This is one day. Like, if someone gets one trick, that was a good day, right? Like, that's how I felt about it. So, like, I feel like everybody got, even Bo's, like, that spin where he hits the tree, you're like, man. Oh my God. He was going for it. Like, in watching all this point of Bo stuff, you're like, I was thinking, oh, this is, and Dustin, like, you've just got so many people in this contest that you're like, I can't even believe that this is a real thing. I can't believe they have all these people in one place for this epic day.
I know that. Yeah, it was such a rad experience. Yeah. And like Jeff, like from Baldface, like was giving us rides to the top. It was just like it's cool like that he was lining this all up for us, and he's always done so much for snowboarding. So that was really nice to have it there.
Yeah, this year was a pretty big year for you too, with the pro model and the art on the pro model. And I know you were working really hard on that project. Yeah,
that was really, cool too. To have a pro model is such an honor, and to work with Arbor to bring that to life I'm really grateful for. And when the design came about, I just really wanted to do something good with it beyond just the board itself. And my friend Alicia, like, she's one of my best friends, Alicia Gilmore, and she's a rad chick. We've known each other for a long time. She's a skateboarder, snowboarder, surfer, and she suffered from a really gnarly head injury a few years ago. And I have a couple other really close friends who have as well. So it's been really present in my life in the last few years, and seeing the consequences of that and how hard it is to get resources and help. It's really sad. And when my friend Alicia did all the work, and she has such an inspiring story, and she started through her recovery doing this art with like the wood art, like, and I was just like, this is so beautiful, and I wanted to lift her spirit. So I didn't tell her right away, but I approached the Arbor designers and be like, can we somehow put her art on the board, or at least get an inspiration from her art for the board? And they were super down with it. And then when she found out, she really like was so stoked and freaking out. And then the idea of making a little piece about it so we could bring some awareness, because her greatest desire is to help people with this, and she learned so much, and she has so many resources. So that's when like Sean Kearns got involved, and like we did this video, and it was just came out into a beautiful piece. And I'm just so glad that it's more than the board. It's just a bigger story about something really important where a lot of people struggle and can hopefully find help if they need through Alicia's story. And like, she's like, honestly, if people can reach out to me, and I will help them. Like she's actually going to school to
Cool.
be able to help people even more on the subject.
That's so important. I know Natasha Zurich touched on it in her episode. She's like, my memory's not so good, but I've had a lot of concussions. Hard to tell, if I had a bad memory before or if it's from the concussions. And she says it kind of jokingly, but it's serious too. Like professional snowboarders, you hit your head a lot. It happens.
Oh yeah.
My God, man, it's scary.
Talk about Jess Kimura. How much I had a preview of her movie.
Yeah, I watched it. Oh
my gosh, it is such a beautiful movie. So it's so good. But like to see, I always knew she freaking sent it and destroyed herself.
Right.
But seeing the amount of head hits she has in that footage, I'm like, oh my Lord, you poor thing. Like,
yeah, there's a point in that movie where I was just crying, just like being like, no, please no. Mm-hmm. Even though the trick that she gets at the end is like it was the trick that broke through to the men's snowboarding world, where I was like, oh, that's a sick trick. And then it was like, oh, that's a girl. Like, so I can imagine for women watching snowboarding at that time, that wall plant thing.
Oh yeah.
That must have just been a mind. She won part of the year with that part, right? But so
she won so many things. I mean, she sent it so much, and to see all of her footage in one place, you're like, oh my God, Jess is such a freaking G.
Oh my God, exactly.
She did so much for women's snowboarding, but like her passion and her drive there, I don't think there's one other snowboarder that comes even close.
No, I agree. I have to agree.
It's a beautiful film.
The movie's called Learning to Drown. Like she put a post up that it's coming out, right? Like, so if you're a snowboarder, if you're just a human being, it's worth looking that up, watching that movie. It's so moving as a story. Yeah.
On so many levels, about grief, about just our own self battles and depression, and oh man, I think Ben Knight did it. He did a beautiful job. It's just, I'm so glad that Jess' story is told, and I think that was really hard for her. Like, it's a vulnerable place, but gosh, I'm so glad she shared her story.
Yeah, it's like super vulnerable.
I wanted to cry the whole time. I had tears in my eyes the whole time.
Yeah,
and I just love Jess so much. There was things in there I didn't even know, and I was like, holy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing her first movie in Whistler and like meeting her in Whistler. I was like, well, this girl really wants it. She's really passionate, and like I just loved her raw attitude and such a sweetheart at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I love watching her old school footage, like when she was younger. Yeah. And her parents like shoveling spots with her. So cool. And I didn't realize she competed a bit in border cross too.
Yeah.
It's cool. Anyway, I don't want to ruin the film. You got to watch it.
No, you got to watch the film for sure. But are you guys close friends kind of thing?
Oh, yes. I was just like telling her to come visit me ASAP on the island, but she always doesn't come because she's scared to bother me. She's so funny.
Oh my God.
She's like, maybe I'll come, but don't worry, I'll stay somewhere else. Or like, she's like, I know that it's hard with her, like the wetsuit and for her shoulder. I think Mexico's the place to be.
Yeah.
For surfing.
You're talking about surfing. Right. This whole season is just me whining about, sledding is hard. Oh, surfing in a wetsuit is hard. Like, camping in winter is too much for me. I just, sit around my house and get good sleeps and go to the local mountains. That's me.
Oh, whatever. I've seen you get out there sledding. I've seen you get some good effort in.
Oh, I'm having fun. I'm having fun for sure. But yeah, so tell me, I'm curious about, because my wife and I have a plan to build, like a rammed earth home or some sort of alternative construction housing. And you've already done that, right? Like you built everybody calls it a corncob house, but how did you first decide to build an alternative dwelling?
Well, I had first, well, in I think 2010, I like the year I broke my neck, I
Oh,
was
wow.
back home here on the island early. I had bought my property like the year or two before, and a friend of mine showed me this book. It was like The Builders of the Pacific Coast or something by Lloyd Kahn. He's legendary. And I saw these homes in there that were made out of cob, COB, nothing related to corn on the cob. Cob is it's also a word for like this natural cement, which is a mixture of sand, clay, and straw and water that you mix by foot.
Yep.
And you can shape it into walls to whatever shape you want. That's why you can make beautiful round walls. You can add shelves in there. You can add bottles, create any kind of light and windows that you want. It's just really creative way to build and a natural way to build. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And then a month later, another friend texted me. She's like, hey, there's anybody interested into this natural building course given on Salt Spring Island by these ladies called the Mud Girls.
Rad.
It's like a 1-week course. And I was like, my neck was just starting to be better. I was out of the neck brace and I was like, I don't know, like it was a week of camping too. I was like, I think I can do this. Like, let's just go check it out. And then I went to Salt Spring and we were building a cob building, and there was one already finished on the property as well that the single mom was living in with her son. I think it was 100 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, wow, this is so rad. And it's a way of building that you don't necessarily have to be a builder, you know.
Sure.
It's pretty like straightforward once you have the structure built. And I just fell in love with it. The first day I'm like, I'm building one. And I just love that. I love that it's like it's more creative and like you're trying to use the most natural materials as possible and reducing your footprint in that way, and you're reducing the footprint of the building itself as far as how much, it takes a while, so you want to build smaller, and you can use recycled materials, and you don't have to. It's just what I wanted to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I started to build it when my brother helped me so much, Alex, and he built the roof first together, and then he had to leave, and it took me 4 years to finish the
Wow.
But I live in it now. I mean, with Timmy, and it's great. It's awesome. I'm so thankful to have this space. It feels really magical to have a space that you built yourself. I mean, to be fair, I didn't build this on my own. I had lots of friends who helped me, lots of people I hired to help me. Mm-hmm. Just to wake up in a building surrounded by rainforest and something small and humble, and it just feels really good, and it feels sweet to put your brain into reducing and like thinking efficiently about like the sun exposure, and like it's really cool challenge. So I'm excited for you to do that, and I'm wondering what techniques you're going to use and where.
Well, I'm listening to you thinking, okay, well, first I got to get that book. That's for sure.
I have lots of other books too.
Yes. Yeah. And then I got to go do this course with my wife and the Mud Girls. Like, obviously.
Yes, you should.
Like that's important. I think that's the thing. I remember seeing an Earthship movie maybe 10, 20 years ago about like those Earthship homes. And then I've looked at a couple of YouTube videos since of what they've evolved into, where they smash the dirt into old tires and build walls and collect rainwater. And then there's like a solar element, and there's a gardening element, and there's airflow element. When my wife and I went on our last vacation, the house we stayed in was an adobe house, and it was built in the traditional way. It had a brick domed roof, and it was cool during the day in the burning hot sun, and it was warm at night. It was so bizarre. And it wasn't like heated by electricity. It was just like the thermal properties of the materials they used. And so that's what I want to build. I want to build something where it's a smaller footprint. It's efficient, like you say, and it's alternative to, oh my God, when you think of the toxic stuff that we use to build our houses, plastic films and fiberglass fills and all this crazy stuff that you're breathing in forever. Like, all right, cool. No, I don't want that at all. But
it all adds up. And like the more you can, and even like, there's not everything I could find recycled, but a lot of it you can. And there's like great, like Rebuild It Center. Like, so it like, you don't need brand new everything. And like, I mean, windows, I think it's probably worth investing into like good quality ones. But yeah, it's just really, really cool what you can do if you think outside the box. Yeah. And if you think beyond just a brand new home, like, if you think about your impact and how you can reduce it, it's just really neat, and it feels good to, it's not perfect, but it feels good to make an effort.
Do you want to talk a bit about it, or we can cut this out if you don't want to? The fact that, you had to put up a trailer on your property so that like for building inspectors, because you can't get an inspector to come and sign off on this type of alternative building. Is that something that I've got wrong, or?
No, fully. It's the permitting is really challenging. So when I bought the property here, there's already a trailer on it.
Got it.
Which I lived in for 2 years. And this is kind of the perfect scenario because you already have a dwelling. Because if you're like to just buy land and want to build something like this, you would need a building permit. For anything you want to build, you need a building permit. And it's just, unfortunately, these types of buildings are really hard to get approved because they're not meeting code, or these materials are not recognized by the code. And a lot of it is because of the construction materials lobby. Yeah. And a lot of it's for safety. I get it, and insurance purposes, but a lot of it like could be totally safe and insurable, but they just don't want to approve natural materials because those are free.
Right.
So yeah, at a time where I feel like people need housing, people need affordable housing, and we need to move away from big industry and like try to reduce our impact. It's so funny that we can't. You can't even own your own land, pay so much money for it, and build something natural and humble legally.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. And I get some of the reasons why, but there's definitely some reasons that don't make any sense, and that's because of money. Yes.
Yeah. That you need to have your home inspected makes sense on some level, but that the inspectors can't recognize engineering, right? Like if you've got a brother who's an architect and he can sign off on the structural integrity of the building, then an inspector should be able to come in and go, yeah, okay, well, if it's engineered properly, that's fine, right? But but they don't have the resources to do that. They just don't know how to.
I don't think it's a resource thing. I think it's like it's a structure and money thing.
Yes.
They want people to buy material. So, and I mean, I don't think that's everything. Like I said, there's safety reasons, but if you get people to build for free, you're going to lose money.
Right.
People's going to lose money somewhere.
Yeah, when you look at those Earth Home videos, it's a community coming together, building a permanent home for like a family. And sometimes for, a group of people, because you could build a big, long house that has a bunch of rooms in it and a community garden, and you could actually have, a group of people live very, very comfortably. On a smaller footprint, for sure. But yeah, that is definitely not what society is all about right now. It's like, no. You just rent a place. Just do the same thing that everybody does. You know what I mean? Participate in the economy. And if everybody did this, the economy would suffer. Come on, just get in line.
I know. And I mean, to be fair, there are a few that are approved.
Yep.
But you kind of need to be lucky. You need to have connections with the, like, whoever, like, gives the permits, or you need to, like, really fight for it. You almost need to be a lawyer yourself. Like, so I know of a few that were able to get them up to code and approved legally, but the process and the amount of time, energy, and money you risk to put through that to maybe not even be approved. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of person that I find myself saying, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Not always the raddest way to live your life. It's a pretty selfish way to be sometimes.
To me, and it's not like I'm trying to sneak out of the law. It's just that it's such a missed opportunity for creativity and for affordable housing for people at a time where it's gone insane, the real estate market, and people can't even find a place to live. Businesses in Yuki are closing in every other town because they can't find staff, because staff can't find a place to live.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's a weird time that we live in, for sure. But getting back to one of the things you said, you broke your back? Like you broke your neck? Like, oh my God, how did that happen?
That happened in, I think, 2010. I was filming at the time with Annie for Absinthe, and I was in a really strange part of my life. I was like struggling. I was burnt out from snowboarding. I felt like pressure, and I felt like I wasn't providing enough. And I don't know. It was just after a few years of being pulled in every direction. And I felt like I had no time to ride for fun. I wasn't progressing. I was burnt out. And, I was at Brandywine at the Blowhole, and I was like, it was late March. I was like, I have not really any shots that I'm proud of. And I don't know. Like that day I was like, I'm just going to do something just because I just got to do something. Yeah. And then nothing was working out that day. And we were at the Blowhole, and we thought we could wall ride it, but it wasn't really lining up properly. And then I was like, it was a blue sheet of ice. It was beautiful. And there was a cornice on top. But it was like, I'm just going to go air off the cornice and land on the ice and ride it out.
Oh my God.
Cool. It'll look cool. And like, they're like, okay. And then I get up there, and the filmer, Paul Watt, at the time, is such a nice guy. I love Paul. He's such a great person to work with. He goes like, you're going to go really, really slow, right? Because it was overhanging, and I couldn't really go look at it from the top. I didn't want it to crash. I don't know. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'll go slow. And then, but in my head, I was like, you always go too slow. So.
Oh no.
Don't go too slow. And then I just went, and the top was powder and beautiful, but the last couple meters looked like that, but they were like straight hard ice from the wind. Yeah. And so it accelerated me even more. And as soon as I took off, like I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm for sure, like I can't land on my ass or my back because I'm gonna break it, and I need to land on my feet, and I will probably blow both my knees. Yeah. But it's okay. Oh my God. And I did, and I just got so worked. And at first I was just out of breath laying there on the ground. I landed on my feet, and I whipped to the back. I whipped to my back instantly, and I was just catching my breath, and they were just all there around me. Are you okay? And I'm like, hey, I think I'm fine. I think I can probably sled out of here, and let me just sit up. Yeah. And as soon as I tried to lift my head, like a tiny bit, like I had the sharpest pain in my neck. Oh no. And I was like, uh-oh, something's not right. And then they called a heli, and them putting me in that C-spine thing. Oh gosh, I was crying so much. It was so big. I felt like they were ripping my head out of my body. And I was like, please stop. You're for sure. If I'm not paralyzed now, I'm going to be. Right. And I mean, I couldn't move my legs and arm. I just had some tingling in my arms. And then I got to the hospital in Vancouver and did some tests. And they were like, you are so lucky, because I fractured my C2. Yep. And it's called the hangman's fracture. Yep. Which the doctors were like, usually, like most people who break this stop breathing instantly. So you are extremely lucky to be alive and stable. And so, because it's like your second vertebrae, so it controls, like if I was to touch the spinal cord there, like you stop breathing. So, oh my gosh, I was so grateful, and yeah, it recovered totally fine. And yeah, I was surfing 4 months later. Crazy.
Oh, that's nuts. Yeah. So in this injury, you're describing being kind of burned out, and that's sort of, or at least, stretched thin, and you're like, okay, I got to get some shots here. When you get injured, is there a sense of relief of like, oh, okay, well now at least I don't have to think about getting any shots this year. I don't have to, there's no more pressure on me to, now it's just about healing, and I can do that from home. I can do that, by getting lots of good sleep and eating lots of good food and chilling out.
Yeah.
Or is there more stress? Or are you like, oh shit, now I'm going to lose my sponsors and I didn't get enough footage this year? And
it was mixed feelings, it's just like, initially I just felt guilt. It just felt guilt even not like to feel this way. I felt guilt because I have like all these amazing sponsors and support, and I should be so stoked. This is all I've ever like dreamt of. Even I never thought I could ever make it to this level.
Mm-hmm.
And I was somebody that never thought could get sick of snowboarding or like feel this kind of feelings towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there, and I just felt like somebody, like I'm taking the resources and the money from somebody else that could maybe appreciate it more, or like what's going on with me? Like, why am I not stoked right now?
Right.
And the injury, it's almost like it manifested itself.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to just recollect, and I think everything's always meant to be, although sometimes it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
And yeah, I at the time I was like, well, yeah, I mean, some people thought I would never snowboard again. It never crossed my mind that I would not snowboard again. I was like, I'm fine. This was just a mistake. And it was a mistake from stress, trying to pushing yourself when you shouldn't. And it was a learning experience. And during that recovery time, during building my house, this is the time I needed. And this is when I was like, okay, as I keep snowboarding, what do I want out of it? Like I was just so tired of it being so self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I had achieved a lot of things that I was really proud of. And that's when, but I was like, I want to give back. I want it to be something bigger than just me. And I want to reconnect with my initial purpose. I felt no purpose. And it was like what I studied and the environment that was still really, really important to me. But I felt like I couldn't talk about it as a snowboarder.
Right.
Because of my own footprint, and like, it felt so hypocritical, but I was like, well, everybody feels this way. And that's when, during that recovery time, that the idea came to me, like during building my cob house, to make a movie that addresses all of this. So that's when I decided to do the Little Things movie.
Rad.
So I'm really grateful for that injury in that sense. It gave me the time to think and reassess.
That's so rad. Yeah. I mean, it's not rad that you got that badly hurt, but I understand. Yeah, the manifestation of like, okay, time to slow down and rethink, regroup, recalculate. And that's what you come up with. Like, yeah, you were an activist in the snowboard community. You were taking a stand for things that were really important to me as well. Because I remember watching The Inconvenient Truth and then being like, holy shit, why aren't we doing things? Like the one takeaway that I came out of that with, as I was driving to work and I was driving from Kitsilano to North Van, I was looking at how the occupancy of our cars is like everybody's just one. That's why they have those HOV lanes. You only need to have two. And you can go in an HOV lane because everyone's just one. And so the next day I drove up to the bus stop, which was just overcrowded. And I rolled down my window. I said, I got 4 seats. I'm going right through downtown. Anyone who wants a ride, hop in. And the whole bus stop of people looked at me like, no fucking way, asshole. Like, what kind of weird psycho person are you? And then one guy that I know, he has like pretty severe mental illness, and he was, in trouble with the police a lot in my neighborhood. He just walked forward. He was like, okay, yeah, here. And he just like got in my car beside me. And he was like, yeah, I'm going downtown. And then he's kind of directing me around, like I went off of my route to drop him exactly where he was going. And I was like, wow, that was a really embarrassing experience. I think someone at the bus stop was like taking my license plate number down. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, this creepy guy rolled up to the bus stop and was like telling people to get in. That's like, someone should tell the police about that guy, right?
This is the best story ever.
That really happened to me. And then I did a couple of days or a week or so of the commute, one guy in the car, and I was like, fuck it. I'll just bike it. I'll bike it. And it was a challenging bike. It's like 15 kilometers. It took about the same amount of time as waiting in traffic. And then you start to get this arrogance of a biker of like, fuck you guys. You're burning fuel just sitting there, one person in your car. It's easy to get upset. And then I did nothing. You walk at a protest and no oil pipeline or something, but it's really, really difficult to find that motivation to do like what you've done. And I'm super proud that you've done that stuff. You're a great example of someone who's taken steps in the right direction.
Well, I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's challenging for everyone. It never feels 100% right. It always feels hypocritical. Mm-hmm. And when you do a lot, then yeah, people feel they judge each other for not doing enough.
Yes.
Like, it's such a tricky one to navigate. And like, even when I did the film, like I had like so many close friends be like, I don't get it. Like, you're making this film, but you snowmobile.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, for sure. But like, like biologists will be in the heli all day to just measure population or look at habitat. Like, you need to, if we all think like this, we will never do anything.
Right.
Like, we're all guilty. We all have a footprint. Mm-hmm. What can we do beyond that? Like, it's not about you. This is what I realized. It's not about me living in the woods and giving up everything, because everybody is going to think you're a psycho, just like you're at the bus stop.
Yes.
It's about what you can do with the gifts you have, the skills you have, and the resources you have. And that's what really I've learned. And it looks different for everyone. A lot of people don't even have the bandwidth, the time, like to do anything. Like a single mom that's working so hard just to survive. Yeah, mm-hmm. There's no time, and sorry, and totally understandable. But I was in a situation where I felt like I had free time, I had connections, I have a platform. Yes, I'm not perfect. Yes, I go in helis. Yes, I have a snowmobile. It's part of getting my job done. But beyond that, like the things I can do, those are positive. Like I could just keep snowmobiling, heliing, and do nothing.
Yes.
But I'm just trying to do more where I can. And I think if everybody could just do that and just accept their own guilt and accept that nobody's perfect, we would have a lot more people coming on board and we would see a lot more change.
I love what you're saying. And I think one of the things that people are starting to realize is that these other things, these alternative houses, like what I was describing in Mexico, that place is better than anywhere I've stayed here. It's sick. And I'm sure your place, you enjoy living in it. There's a real sense of pride and ownership and to having built a place with your friends, right? I bought an electric car and I was like, it's better to drive around. It's way more fun. It's super zippy. You know what I mean? And I'm not paying any money for gas. That's so dope. It's the best. And then some other people would say, well, to manufacture the batteries is really toxic and the blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but it's not, I'm not burning any gas. I've had the car for 2.5 years. I've driven 50,000 K. That's a lot of gas I've saved from burning.
For sure. I find people always come up with an excuse or a negative.
Yeah.
Oh yes, but
yeah,
that just like explains why they're not doing it. And mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, yes, the batteries, but we have to move in the direction for it to get better. It's not perfect.
Totally.
But the more we invest in that direction, the better we'll get and the quicker.
It's frustrating when, as soon as you take a moment to like look at what society is doing, you're like, oh my God, we are so far off where we should be right now. We have the connectivity, we have the communications, we have the ability to give good information. This is something I haven't talked about on the show yet, something I realized through a podcast a couple of weeks ago, that the quality of information that we put in our brains is just as important as the quality of food that we put in our bodies. So like when you see people getting really, really upset, you know, when you see, sorry to throw him under the bus, but Nicholas Mueller talking about, you know, how Trump is going to rise again and fix everything. You go, I don't think the quality of that guy's information is that good. Like it's like when you heard that Jeff Brushy always ate at McDonald's, you're like, how did that guy rip so hard and eat McDonald's every day? That's insane.
Oh yeah, it takes a toll. It's so true. I was thinking about that the other day too on my drive. Like people say you are what you eat. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think people also are what you read.
Yeah, you have to be. We all have those friends that are pretty deep down those conspiracy tunnels.
Oh yeah.
And you go, okay, well, a lot of what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Tons of it is based in a real frustration with the way that the world is. Absolutely. But then when you get to the lizards and the eating babies thing, I start to go, well, I think the quality of your information is deteriorating a little bit. I think you might have gotten down. I think you might have started getting your information from somebody who's just really mad. And it's difficult because we love these people. We really do. There are some of them are friends and family, and it's just a health of information thing. And there's no gauge on your phone to tell you, hey, you know what you're reading right now was written by somebody who's trying to get you upset, or that's trying to get likes.
Or millions of dollars.
Or millions of dollars, right.
Those people who made those fake sites are making millions of dollars. And that's the argument. People are like, follow the money. Look at the corporations. I'm like, have you looked at how much money these people make from making these sites?
Yeah.
And selling supplements online? Like,
yes.
But I know these people love us too, and they're trying to protect us. You know, they're trying to educate us on something that they think is a huge threat for us. So I'm trying to look at both sides, but this just doesn't add up.
Me too. I feel exactly the same. I've always worried about the environment because I have kids. You know, I think it's pretty obvious when you build a cob house that it's not social signaling. You're just like, I want to have a better life. And this is what I'm choosing. I'm going to choose to try and do this.
Yeah, I get the concept of greenwashing is really annoying, but people are like, oh, it's just trendy to be green. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, good. Yeah. If it's a trend, good. The more the merrier. And even if, like, yes, you might be hypocrite in greenwashing, but it's still, if there's some good in there, sure. Like, I don't care. I'm more stoked on a bit of action that's maybe not as big as its claim as somebody that just talks shit and does nothing.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's on the same trajectory as snowboarding, so that's exciting, right? Like it's growing. Yeah. It's growing in acceptance. It's growing in popularity. Yep. And yeah, I said it a few seasons ago on the show about Monsanto looking into, I think that they're trying to patent the mycelium stuff, right? Like, so the forests are all connected by a layer of mushroom mycelium that transports information and different nutrients and all that sort of stuff. And when Monsanto used that to grow crops, their yields were super high. And so it's like, okay, well, if they're going to take out all their pesticides and shittiness and use mushrooms instead, that's a huge win for the world. Like, I hate those guys on principle. Monsanto sucks. They're like an evil corporation. But if once they switch to doing something that's non-destructive, they'll be the biggest company in the world doing non-destructive shit. That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have a long way to go, but
I definitely agree.
But yeah, I think it's the same as when you see Walmart taking like, you know, one small initiative, what
Mm-hmm.
it means at the global scale,
Mm-hmm.
it can make a big impact. As much as we don't like Walmart,
Right.
I'm like, yes, do more of that. Help the people, help the planet. Like
Yes.
you can do so much. You have so much money.
I think the YouTube generation, the YouTubers, and they're going to organize in a way that we were never able to, because they can, because they're connected. And if you get connected to something good, like a Greta Thunberg movement, then you're going to be connected with an awful lot of people in a very, very positive way. And that's going to spread exponentially. It already is happening across Europe. It's going to come to North America, and we're going to put our own spin on it or whatever. It'll be McDonald's or sponsored by the Olympics or whatever the fuck it is. But it'll be cool to be green very soon, I think. The same as it's cool to be a snowboarder.
Yeah, I agree with you. The youth is really, I think, promising. Yeah, they have a lot of things figured out that we don't, and they're just so much better at it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's really good. And yeah, I'm excited for the future. And you know what? Like, we will have to do it no matter what. They will. It's just like, I'm hoping we do it before it becomes a state of crisis. Like, you know.
I think we are in a state of crisis, to be completely honest.
Oh, for sure. But it will get worse. It will get worse. The less we do, the worse it will be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm fascinated by your career and your positivity. And I'll tell you, the people that I talk to about you in the snowboard industry, like, everybody's just a huge fan. Everybody. You've done really, really great things with your career. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for agreeing to do it.
Thanks so much, Eric. You're the best. Thank you. And thanks for including more women on your show. I really enjoyed the episodes and Natasha. It's been so long since I heard from her. And
it's actually all Jess. Like, I went and interviewed her this year, and I put my foot in my mouth so hard again. And I told her, you know, like, women's footage is just B footage, you know. And you can imagine what she would look at me like, right? Like, basically kill me with her stare that I said that. And she set me straight. She said, you know, you think that stuff is for you to watch? Women's snowboarding is for you? What kind of weird, arrogant? She just laughed. She's like, oh, you think it's for you? Cool. Well, guess what? It's not. It's for me. Like, if Tara Takitas hadn't been in the magazine, I wouldn't have been Jess Camira. And if I wouldn't have been in the movies, then these uninvited girls wouldn't be who they are. Like, with no role models, there's no one to follow. So there's no progression. And that's why we are where we are. It's a different category.
Exactly.
That's why we have categories.
Yeah, we need to elevate all the categories.
Absolutely. And
elevate all the people.
Yeah. It's so fun. Yeah, it's so fun. Women's snowboarding is the highest growth, you know, part of the sport right now. It's the most fun to watch.
It's so true. Yes. Respect. It's about respect, too. It's like, okay, you may not think it's as cool as your category, but at least respect it.
At least respect it. Yeah.
And support it.
You said it the right way. If you go to a skate park and you're just skating around and some kid shows up who's never skated before and you watch him progress day by day, you're stoked when he drops in. You're like, wow, that was great. And you can't be stoked about girls who are shredding snowboarding. Yeah. That's just bizarre. There's something weird going on there. It's like some programming.
This expectation that we should be as good as men, or else it's just we're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Or we don't deserve as much because we're not at the same level. Therefore, we should make as much money.
Right.
Like, it's so weird.
Or shouldn't be on podcasts. Like, that was the thing that Jess pointed out to me. It's like, hey, you ever wonder why you don't have more female listeners? You probably don't have very many female listeners because you don't have many female guests. And then even when I talked to Hannah, she mentioned, oh yeah, I heard the Natasha interview. And I'm like, oh, great. So here's the thing. If I start interviewing more women, then more women will be willing to be on the show.
Absolutely.
That's so much better. Oh my God. Like cutting out an entire category of snowboarders is like a nightmare. I don't want that. I want women to be on the show. They're interesting to hear their stories. It's so great.
Yes, and we get inspired. I fully agree. Like if it wasn't for the generation before us, like Kara and Bear Christie,
yeah,
you would have had nothing to show us it's possible.
Right. And Tina and Shannon and so many iconic snowboarders are women, and I have never really given them the respect that they deserve. And I feel like now I've finally come to a place where I can appreciate it in a way that is logical. It makes sense. The quality of my information is better.
Yes. You should get Victoria on the show. Oh my gosh, if she wanted to, that'd be amazing. You know
what? I've spoken to her just through emails, and she's just not interested in doing it right now.
We all want to hear about her, though.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, she's the number one requested guest of all guests.
That's awesome.
So she's not doing interviews, but when she does, you can be sure I'm going to drive up to their place and just... yeah, sit down and get that interview with her for sure.
That'd be rad. Well, thank you for all that you do for the culture. It's really interesting, and it's keeping it alive. And yeah, you're such a legend.
Whatever.
You're still shredding every day.
I do shred a lot. Thanks, MFR. You're the best. I'm stoked I got to talk to you.
We have a great community.
Yeah, we really, really do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Jesus. Awesome. FNRad shout-outs this week to MFR, all the guests of Season 6, and all the guests of the show over the whole life of the show. Thank you to my family, Emma, Bowen, Terry Lynn. I love you guys the most. And thanks to all you listeners. You're the reason I do this show. I can't believe how great my life in snowboarding is because of this thing. I'll be back in November with Season 7, and in the meantime, I'll be putting out stuff sporadically. Just check your feed. It'll be there. All right. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.